Radio UK. This is Star 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 Radio UK.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
In your car,
At work,
at home,
on your smartphone.
The best radio show.
And the host of your weekly business show, Bebe Means Business. The show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business, but everything you ever wanted to know about business, how to grow it, how to start it, how to sell it if need be. We give you tips, knowledge, education on anything and everything to do with business. All the advice that you will ever need to be successful in business and in your quest to become financially free. I'm your host, as you know, Bebe Clement, and I run a group of successful companies. I'm also the author of How to Go from Employee to Entrepreneur. I wrote that book a few years ago, and of course I had no idea that what was going to happen in the world was going to happen. But I wrote that book because so many people that I met were unhappy in their jobs, and they hear how to go from there to becoming an entrepreneur. So I wrote that book to give them tips on how to do it, because I've done it. I had made the transition from being an employee to an entrepreneur. And so I wrote that book to give people tips on how to do it. Now, that book was selling well before COVID-19, but it has gone through the roof now. You'll see it on the right-hand side of your screen. I'd encourage you to get it. It's $12.99 on Amazon, or you can get it from this show, just order it from this show. But I encourage you, if you have a dream of setting up your own business, I'd encourage you to get it, rather than make your own mistakes. I've made mine. So rather than have to go through all the problems of making your own mistake, just learn from the things that I did, so that you can become successful in business. Okay, so for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, welcome, thank you very much. And for those of you who are regular listeners, I also want to say thank you so much for your commitment, and thank you for telling everybody else and all the people that join us from all over the world. Really grateful for the support. Glad that you're getting a lot out of this. I wanted to thank my guest for last week. My guest for last week was Mr. Morton Patterson. What a show, what an enlightening show that was. I was just so pleased to have him on the show. And for those of you who are not here, we were talking about how to charge the fees that you really want. And this is identified as a huge problem, particularly amongst those of us who provide professional services, that we often don't know where exactly to pitch our fees. We're often scared to ask for what we know we really want, because we think we're going to lose the client if we do, or we're charging more than our competitors are charging, that kind of thing. So we tend to undercharge. And he gave us some really valuable tips as to how we can stop doing that. One of the things he encouraged us to do is that when you go for that initial meeting with a client, when you go and pitch initially for a client, and you tend to just babble on about your services and how fantastic what you are and all the things that you can do for your client, he said to take a step back and use that initial meeting to get to know the client. get to understand the nature of the client's business, but most importantly, ask questions. Ask questions. The more questions you ask, the better for you. So one of the first questions you want to be asking is, do you have a budget? And you need to be asking that early on in the conversation so that you don't waste each other's time. So let's say, for instance, your daily fees are £500 a day, and the client you're pitching to, their budget is £200. Well, then clearly they're talking to the wrong person. So except there's some kind of middle ground, there is really no point in continuing that conversation. He also encouraged us to have a range of options for the client. So rather than you say you give just one option to the client and the client says, well, actually, no, I can't afford that, or I don't want that, and then that ends the conversation. Have a range of options for the client. So you might have the gold package, you might have the silver package, you might have the platinum package, and then, that gives the client somewhere to go, and that will reduce the potential of you losing that client. He also said to ask things like, why do you want this service now? In other words, what exactly is the problem that you're having that you want my service or my product to solve? And then what would a good outcome look like to you? So these are all the kind of questions that you need to be asking in order to be able to charge the fees that you want. He encouraged us to take our mind off how long it takes for you to do, which is what we tend to look at, and we use that as our yardstick to determine our fees. He said that's irrelevant. What you need to be looking at is, what is the value of this to the client? What is the value of this to the client? And based on the conversation that you have with the client, you're able to determine the value and then charge your fees accordingly. So a huge thank you to Morton Patterson. Also, thanking him for the free gifts that he gave our clients. I understand that two of our listeners have taken advantage of the 45 minutes free consultation that he gave. Thank you very much for those of you who are taking that up. And thanks again to Morton Patterson for offering our listeners that. Okay, today I have another exciting show for you. And today we're going to be talking about how to raise finances for your business. If I had a penny or a pound every time that somebody says to me, Bebe, I want to start a business, I've got a business idea, but I have no idea how much I need. So they often ask me that. They say, Bebe, how much will I need in order to set up my business? Well, difficult question to answer, depending, of course, on a lot of factors, which we'll go into in a little while. But I have a guest on the show who's going to be helping me answer those questions. But just before I introduce him and ask him to introduce himself, just to let you know that this is a live show and it's an interactive program. We want to hear your views on anything that we discuss here, and we will indeed try to answer any questions that you've had about the topic at hand, and indeed any other area of business that you were afraid to ask about. But we'll answer those questions for you. Just to encourage you, there's nothing like a silly question. If you need an answer to a question, then that's a valid question. There's nothing like a silly question, so don't be embarrassed. Please call in with your questions and we'll answer them. We'll be taking a break at 2 o'clock, and when we come back, we'll answer any questions that have come in. Just to tell you how to contact us, as always, you can contact us via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @Star Radio UK, or you can text or WhatsApp us on our number, which is 07539 661 744. 01744, or indeed feel free to email us at info@Star Radio UK, or join us via Facebook at Star Radio UK. Now, as you are aware, over the last few weeks, we've been talking about the first things that you need to do in order to get your business off the ground. And like I said, for those of you who are just joining us, today we're going to be looking at the whole issue of finance. Where do I find the money for the business? Show me the money. That's what we're going to be looking at today. And so I have asked a very special guest to come on the show and talk with us. His name is Bidemi Alabi. Bidemi, are you there with us?
Yes, I am. Hi, Bebe.
You are. Well, very well, thank you. Welcome so much to the show. Really honored to have you. Bidemi is a long-standing work colleague and a very dear friend, and I have benefited from his wisdom and advice many times over the years. We've been on this entrepreneurial journey together. Bidemi, I think we've come a long way. We've come a long way. So really glad to have you on the show. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know how busy you are, so I appreciate you being here. Okay. Do you want to introduce yourself? Just let the listeners know what your background is and the relevance of that to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Bebe. I'm a business strategy and management consultant. My background has always been banking and finance. I am absolutely passionate about startups. I worked many years with Business Link. For those who are old enough to remember Business Link, or young enough as I started to remember Business Link. I did quite a lot of business development consultancies stuff through Business Link London and the Business Link East of England. I run my own consultancy company for 10 years. And I still work with small and medium-sized businesses, but in an advanced role, as purely because I've moved on into the world of media now. But I still love engaging with businesses. And my area of expertise is finance and funding for startup businesses across industry sectors as well. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Okay, all right. So we will be delving into your wealth of advice and knowledge and expertise during this program. Okay, so I found over the years that people totally underestimate just exactly how much they are going to need when they set up a business. And what often happens is they resign from their job, they start the business with a total underestimation in their mind, and then they go a little way into the business and they realize that, oh, I'm having major cash flow problems here. And as you know, Bidemi, cash flow is king in a small business. Cash flow is your lifeline. There are a lot of companies that are asset rich, but they hit something and they run out of cash. And a lot of businesses disappear from the map just because of that. What are your views on that?
Oh, no. Maybe you're absolutely right. Lots of people, I've worked with hundreds of startup businesses over the last 10 years. And it's the same thing. You have an idea, you're very passionate about your idea, you've done your research, you think it will work. But typically, a lot of people don't come from a financial background. So when it comes to actually putting together a startup budget, a lot of people kind of, let's suck it and see, or just put some scanty figures in there. And then, like you said, they run into problems further down the line because they've only taken into consideration investment capital, not working capital within their startup budget. And like you said, cash is king. You can have a fantastic idea. You can have, money to invest in the investment capital that is around that business, but you have to sustain the business, and it's cash and your cash flow that sustains the business as you go along. Little things like quitting your job, for example. People quit their job and they might not have enough savings to take them 12 months. And that's part of your cash flow.
Yeah, we discussed that on a show a couple of weeks ago. We discussed that whole having a transition plan, and that transition plan has got to include how we're going to pay the mortgage in the next years, because as you well know, the average business doesn't start going into the black or turning a profit for the first 2 years. So how are we going to eat for the first 2 years? And often people don't take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's fundamentally why a lot of startups fail. It's not because the ideas are not good. It's because a lot of them underestimate how much they will need. Like you said, 2 years. In fact, if I always say to businesses, if you think it's going to take you 2 years to turn a profit, multiply that by 3. Yes.
Wow.
Because, look at the beginning of this year. All of us were Happy New Year, everything, and then COVID happened. And all of a sudden, healthy businesses just saw a lot of their reserves wiped out. Yeah. And that's how business goes. So that's why I always say, the prayer is that it happens in 2, but give it 6.
I like that. Okay. So let's sorry to butt in there. I like that. let's go into the nitty gritty of the kind of things that I think people need to start addressing their mind to if they want to set up a business that they often don't. So you mentioned working in investment capital. Let's talk through the working capital. So I'll mention some of the things that I think that they may need to spend money on, and feel free to just jump in there if I miss anything. So the first thing I'd look at is staffing costs. Now, that's if indeed you have staff, but for those of you who will have staff from the start, so you're looking at what? You're looking at wages?
Yes.
You're looking at national insurance, if you're in the UK, things like national insurance, PAYE, stuff like that?
Yes, absolutely.
What's the situation as regards pension now?
As regards
pensions, employers.
Absolutely. Now, pension regulations have come in. So for certain types of employees, you will need to, have a contribution, a pension pot that the employer will contribute into as well. I will be the first to tell you I'm not a pension expert. I'm not an expert in that area. But what I will always recommend is if you are going to take on staff, even if it's yourself.
Yes.
Check again.
Yeah.
And there's also one thing, a lot of startups that are going to take on employees always, for some reason, fail to plan for. And that is the employer's national insurance contributions. That is very critical.
Wow.
You can't do all the deductions, from, your income or the income of your staff and all of that. But as far as you have employees, the employer also has to pay employers' national insurance contributions.
Wow.
If you do not budget for that, all of a sudden, when you get that brown envelope from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, this is your ENIC liabilities, that's when most businesses panic. Because a lot of times, you think, oh yeah, I've made the deductions, it's gone, I've paid it, my accountant has paid it, then you get that additional liability. And before you know it, that's something that you will have to pay. And if you do have to pay it, and you don't have any reserves, that can potentially be a drain on your working capital.
Okay.
Pressure on your cash flow.
Okay. So things like, well, most companies now have like a website at least.
Yes.
Website costs, of course, they vary, but aside from just the website itself, there are other costs in relation to having a website.
Yeah, absolutely. As with all things, I always say to businesses, you've got to think through your business operations, everything you'll be doing on a day-to-day basis with your business. So let's use the example of a website. If you will build a website, obviously the investment cost there is the building of the website.
Yeah.
But on the back of the building of the website, you will have to host the website, and you probably have to host associated emails for that website. So if you want an info ad, the contact ad, all of those need to be hosted somewhere. So what you will find is that you will have someone who has a dedicated server, or it could be potentially the person who builds your website might have a dedicated, server where you will host your website and your emails. But also, it depends on your website's functionalities as well. So a lot of people have e-commerce websites now, for example.
Yes.
Payment systems.
Yes.
So if you have a payment system embedded in your website, or indeed, a database management software embedded, some of those might come with additional cost.
Yes.
A lot of hosters will tell you, oh, either you paid off, annually or one-off, or usually they would say to you, do it monthly. So those are associated costs. And also, depending on who's hosting your website, they might tell you, they might charge you, security fees, because I was quite surprised, actually shocked that one of my developers said to me with one of my websites, he said, I think I asked him, why do you always charge me this monthly? It's just hosting, isn't it? I can get that anywhere. And so, oh yeah, it's security as well. I said, why? He said, let me show you how many times people try to hack into your website every day. And it was something close to 300 times. I was like, he said, people will always try. So they have to constantly update the security to your website, and those come at additional costs sometimes as well. So it's always worth thinking through. And if you're going to do something like a website, sit with the person designing it and get the nitty-gritty about it. A lot of people say, oh, just buy off the shelf. That's good. or get more information because, as they say, they always say the devil is in the detail. I say the angel is in the detail. That's what the angel is. So get as much information as you possibly can, because then you can understand your cost structure on the back of investing in a really good website. It might look good, might feel good. If it's not secure, all of a sudden what you'd find is that your website keeps going down, it becomes unreliable, and then your customers just lose interest in your business.
Okay. All right. So that's something that you need to take into account. Also, things like marketing material. So you have your stationery, your marketing material. So you have to take into account things like your letterheads, your business cards, your if you have your flyers. If you're going to be doing any adverts, I don't know if people still do paper adverts. I'm sure some people do, but paper adverts. But even if you're doing online adverts, your Facebook adverts and things like that, they all have in mind when you're setting it up, when you're setting up the business. Things like rent, rent, utilities. So if you've hired an office, you have to pay rent, or your lease costs, your utilities, your gas, your electric, and all that kind of thing. Transport, things like transport, hospitality. I spend a lot of time wining and dining clients. So hospitality. Even if they don't come into the office, just the teas and coffees, all that has to be taken into account because that is a cost to the business.
Absolutely. And you also have things like, professional memberships,
Yes.
Employee liability insurance. All of those things contribute to your cost, because a lot of times you might start something and think, oh, it's just this straightforward, and then you just realize that no one's going to take you serious unless you're a member of a professional organization, even if it's just, the straight up Federation of Small Businesses or local Chamber of Commerce. And it works in two ways, but those are the costs that are associated with your business. And when you're pulling together your startup budget, those are the kind of things. And indeed, when you're doing your research, those are the kind of things that you have to take into consideration as well and build it into your cost structure. And most importantly, how do you want to pay for it? Do you want to pay for it one-off? Obviously, if you pay for it one-off, so for example, if your professional membership is £300 a year, if you do it one-off, that's £300 lump sum out of the business.
Yeah.
In a structured way, what you find is that you can manage your cash flow. I always recommend start structured, then move to one-off.
Yeah.
Because that way you easily manage your cash flow. But there, a lot of things, little things like, public liability insurance, professional indemnity insurance, employers liability insurance. You just got to do the research and find out, what are the costs? How do they relate to what I set up? And it's also, all of it varies by industry. There are certain industries you need licenses, and you need to pay for those licenses before you can start business. Business, all those things.
Okay, cool. Yeah, some of them I'd forgotten about. So thanks for the reminder. So yeah,
not a problem.
Let's go on to investment capital. Now this is more your heavy duty stuff, right? This is kind of things that but more your long-term range stuff, like your IT system.
Yes.
Your telephone system. If you're in a business that you need machinery, so payment for your machinery, things like photocopiers, stuff like that. What else? What have I left out?
Even things that are as little as your website, depending on, because your investment capital, a lot of it depends on the nature of your business you want to do. So, for example, the investment capital for someone who just wants to set up a care agency is slightly different from someone who wants to set up a care home. So the investment capital required will be slightly different. For example, I'm a consultant, so my investment capital is slightly, less than someone who wants to, set up a full, in-premises accountancy practice. I am quite happy to have, an address somewhere where I can and subscribe to a virtual office where I can meet clients. That's so my investment capital requirements will vary significantly. But it's very important to take your investment capital into consideration when you're starting. So if you're starting a catering business, obviously, if you are going to have a kitchen, fit up the kitchen, significant investment required there.
Yeah.
Not the same as someone who's going to use just rent kitchen space from time to time. Investment capital will definitely be different. So what you want to do, what your route to market is, or how you intend to, go into the market. Those are the things that are very important to take into consideration at a very early stage.
It's you reminded me of something that I always believe. One of my philosophies is in business is that keep your overheads low and your profit high as much as possible. So I think when you're starting up a business, you should, whatever you can cut it out. So while you're thinking about your business, I remember I was giving a woman some advice some years ago. She was about to start a business, and she laid out her ideas, and her ideas were fantastic. So I said, okay, so where are you going to run this? And she said, she was about to go and get an office. I think she said just off Oxford Street. And when I thought about the nature of the company, I was like, this woman can run this from her kitchen table. She doesn't even need an office because the nature of the business was such that her clients didn't have to see her. So I'm thinking, why go get an office in the middle of London? So I said to her, what is the point? Why do you want to do that? And you can imagine how much it was going to cost her to go and get an office in the middle of London. So I said, why do you want to do that? All you need, yes, there were some deliveries involved. All you need really is a small van and a driver. Everything else you can do over the phone. And she said, really? Don't you think they need to see me? I said, no, what do they need to see you for? They don't. And that's what she did in the end.
And Bebe, there you've explained, because a lot of people go into business for different reasons. And also, one of the things I always recommend to startups is find someone credible who will help you have a look at your idea, just like you've done with the person you were talking to. Because sometimes you can have a business idea in a specific way, and because you're set in your way, you end up wasting a lot of very, very valuable resources.
Yes.
Your resources are most valuable at the very early stages of the startup. So if you go and get office premises, ask yourself, do you need it? Or find someone who can ask you those questions. So I'm going to get office Oxford Street. Well, why Oxford Street?
Yeah.
If you don't want to use your home as your business address, just get a virtual address.
Yeah.
Those are about £20, £25 a month. Get those. And it's when you have someone who is able to challenge your idea and also challenge how you want to deliver your idea, it can be invaluable.
Definitely.
Because what typically happens is you could quickly go off, get that Oxford Street, premises, even before you get the first client. Buy that car or that van. Why buy the car or buy the van? Why lease it and pay a very small amount? Why put a heavy deposit that you can use for other things like marketing?
Yes,
this is critical. Because it's usually your marketing that brings you your customers. And I'm a big fan of save as much money and spend as much money as you possibly can on marketing, because that's what brings the clients in. Obviously, as it relates to the nature of your business. For me, it's just critical that, save as much as you can early stage, be wise about how you spend and be realistic as well.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take a break in a minute. Thank you, Bebe. This has been really good. We're going to take a break in a minute. And when we come back, we'll answer any questions that have come in. I've seen a couple of questions come in now. And then I want us to discuss, okay, so now we know what we need to spend the money on. How do we find the money? So let's talk about that after the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after the break.
Hi everyone, it's your girl Bebe Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, Bebe Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Star Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Ready for this?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For those of you who are just joining us, this is the Bebe Means Business Show. And today I have the honor and the pleasure of having a friend and long-standing colleague with me on the show, and his name is Bebe, and he has been speaking to us about the kind of things that you are going to need to spend money on when you start your business. So, I've had a couple of questions come in. I'd like to deal with those questions now. And the first one says, thank you for your advice in expanding my business. I've been
Ready for this?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's your girl, Bebe Clement, and you are tuned in to Bebe Means Business, the show where we discuss everything to do with business, and you get to ask the questions that you've always wanted to know about, but you were embarrassed to ask. On the show today, we're talking about how to raise finances for your business, and I have another special guest on the show, Mr. Bebe, and he has been helping me identify the things that you are going to need to spend money on when you start that business. So welcome back, Bebe.
Thank you, Bebe. Lovely to be here.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions here that you're going to help me deal with, okay? First one says, thank you for your advice. This is from Palm. Thank you for your advice on expanding my business. I have been opportune to listen to the first part of the program. I'd like to explore sources of finance. Well, that's what we're about to talk about, Palm, so you're in luck. We have put together a business plan as advised by you, but most of the lenders are asking for 3 years trading figures and collateral. We've only been trading for 2 years. Is there any lender out there who will be prepared to lend to businesses like ours, which do not have a long trading history and no collateral apart from the business itself? Thanks, and keep up the good work. Wow. Okay, we're going to get to that. Let's deal with some of the things that I've got here. I think in the midst of dealing with that, we will answer Palm's questions. So Palm, stick around. We will answer your question in a minute.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at the different sources of getting money. The first one I'd like to look at is personal assets. And for me, the whole personal assets things really draws home the importance of having different income streams. Because if you don't have different income streams and you don't own collateral, it's going to be quite difficult to raise money. But if you do have different income streams, so let's say you own your own home, or you own a couple of properties, or you have interest in shares or bonds, let's say a business opportunity comes along, you want to start a business, you can liquidate some of the other assets or lend against them, that kind of thing. So I think it's really important that you do have personal assets. You do have different income streams. You cannot just be dependent on a single income stream, i.e. your salary, because when it comes to starting a business, you are going to need more than that. What's your take on that?
No, absolutely. Maybe you're absolutely correct. The very first, and I always call it the foundation of finance or funding any business, is around what you're bringing to the table yourself. So, when you talked about personal assets, you're talking about your cash. So if you've got savings, that's brilliant. How much of it do you have? How much of it can you bring to the table? And it's also very fundamental and extremely important that you do bring something to the table, because further down the line, that's where you bringing something to the table begins to count. So if you've got your own savings, if you're still working, and a lot of people don't think about that. And I always say, if you can stay in employment, it's very challenging, but what you do have is from your income, your monthly income, from employment or other sources, like you mentioned, multiple sources of income. So if you're renting, you've got investment property and all of that. Staying that and keep recycling that into your business enables your business to grow, and that counts personal finance. If you've got property, whether it's stocks, bonds, that you can cash in, important. Evaluate them, see how much of those assets you can liquidate and bring into the business as well. One of the areas that people seldom look at as well is besides your assets, like your property. So if you can remortgage, if you've got stocks and bonds that you can liquidate, if you're still in employment and you're still earning a salary that you can put in, those are brilliant. Another area of personal, and I call them personal assets purely because you already have access to them, is personal credit cards. Now they can be expensive, but the reality is you do have access to them, and you can use part of them to get all those all-important stationery. In fact, some people have credit limits on their personal credit cards that are in 5 digits. So it's worth exploring that purely because you already have those things at your personal disposal. So personal credit card, personal overdrafts as well.
Yes, and also in relation to credit cards, there are some credit card companies that have a 0% interest rate for a limited period. So as long as you're disciplined, and I emphasize that as much as possible, as long as you are disciplined, you're literally looking at an interest-free loan, in effect. That's what that is. So take advantage of that if you can. But if you know you don't have the discipline, huge warning here, if you don't have the discipline, don't go there. Don't go there, because you'll find yourself in trouble.
And to add to that as well, this is where if you are going to use that source of personal finance, it's extremely important that you do your maths. Purely because it might be 0% interest to start with, but the minute you start spending, the clock's ticking. You start to accrue certain so you've got to make sure that you're buying the essentials, the things that are critical to the business, rather than things that you're like, oh, I'm starting my own business, I want an office. That's good, but it's not going to help you repay it quickly.
Yeah. So, or I want the luxury chairs and top of the range filing cabinet. Really, is it necessary? That kind of thing. Yeah, I hear you. I wanted to address a couple of things that Palm said in his question. He said he's put together a business plan, but lenders are asking for 3 years trading figures. Now that's for me, that's a catch-22. Can we go on to the topic of banks? And I'm going to be honest. And I say this in respect for you because I know that you come from a banking background, but I'm not a big fan of banks when it comes to raising finance for business. What are your views? I mean, like you said, they're asking for 3 years trading figures. Well, if this is your first business and you've never been in business before, you're not going to have 3 years trading figures. So it's a catch-22 as far as I'm concerned. What are your views?
Oh no, you're absolutely correct. And one of the things I must emphasize is it's different for every bank. So what you'd find with, say, the likes of Barclays might not necessarily be the same with, Santander or NatWest or Lloyds or TSB. Some banks, the minute you say you're trading, they want to see accounts. Now, and the unfortunate thing is that with a lot of banks, it's an automated system. The system asks for accounts. If you don't give accounts, it will not proceed. Back in the days, for the people that are young enough to remember when business bank managers were still in the community and they'd come to your business and shake your hand and they know you by name, they probably know a few of your kids, stuff like that. You know that most of those business bank managers really understand your need, but now it's very automated, and there's certain pre-application check boxes that they need to fill, and one of it is trading accounts. And some banks, and they will not necessarily tell you, is that what they won't tell you is that they don't lend to early stage businesses purely because they are riskier. So what they'll simply say to you, give us 3 years trading records or trading accounts, and if you don't have it, they kind of automatically they know you're not coming back. And the fact is, early stage businesses are riskier.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He did ask also whether there are other means of which he can raise finance, and the good news is that there are other means which you can raise finance. One of the things that I do is I have a group of investors some of my business colleagues, I have a group of investors, and from time to time, we do have new businesses come to pitch for us, something like Dragon's Den. So we have new businesses come and pitch to us. And those in the group who are interested, they think it's a viable business idea, they will go and they will invest. So we do that. So if you are in that position, and if you want a business startup and you've tried the normal channels, then by all means, please get in touch, and I may be able to assist, or at least signpost you to others that may be able to assist. But a word of warning, one of the issues that I find is that oftentimes people they haven't got it together. They have this business idea in their head, but they cannot show you. And there is no one that's going to put their hard-earned money in a business where you cannot show me the figures. I need to see what is going to happen to my money. And the information, the necessary information at hand, you don't have it at your fingertips. You're umming and ahhing. It doesn't breed confidence. So in a lot of cases, it's not even an issue of money. The money is there to invest, but we need to see, we need to see some seriousness as well. We need to see some commitment. And like you said, we need to see what you are putting in, because I'm not going to give you 50 grand if you are putting in 1,000. That's not going to happen. So these are the kind of things that people have to put in together, get together before they go looking for money. I want to take another question, Bidemi, if you don't mind. This is not necessarily in relation to this topic, but it's a valid question. It says, well done again for a wonderful program. We're returning to normality somewhat, but the potential end of the furlough scheme is causing us some anxiety. Yes. We project that at the end of the furlough scheme, we would need to reduce staff numbers by at least 50%. Wow. My question is, should I bite the bullet now and make them redundant, or wait until the end of the furlough period? I see some of them regularly outside work, and it breaks my heart when I see them smiling and telling me that they are looking forward to returning to work. Oh my gosh, I can imagine. That's horrible. That really is. And that's a question from Enito. Enito, hi. Enito regularly calls in with questions. I'm a strong believer that if you can afford to keep your staff on, keep them on. Because, I mean, they've been loyal. They're the ones
nothing, So you've just got to go back and look at your finances. The first question you're asking yourself is, can the business actually afford it? There's no need to being emotional about it. Doesn't help, So saying, that's I understand that and I appreciate that, but this is business. It's about if you don't have the money in your bank account to pay them, trust me, those people that you think are nice, they will turn on you. I think it's true. Yeah, it's true. It's a plain fact. After month 1, and you tell them, "Oh, can you take a pay cut?" Watch their reaction. And I'm not saying it's, just watch their reaction. If you say the minute you mention pay cut, not even redundancy, go to pay cut, because that will be the next natural thing. Up until the time where you've calculated that you will be making enough money to return them back into full pay, or the government will come in to assist. So if they make the furlough period longer and they're willing to take that on, and your business reserves can handle that, absolutely. Yeah. If you can't handle it, because again, the redundancy process is a legal process.
Yes.
So you can't say, "Oh, I'll wait till," and then I'll tell them a week before. It doesn't work that way. You swiftly find yourself in an employment tribunal.
Okay.
So what's important is look at your own bank account. Look at the ability of your business based on your business model. So over furlough, a lot of people would have readjusted their business models so that once they go back, they might be able to be. And some businesses traded quite well during the lockdown period. So if you think your business can handle it, but the critical question is, for how long can your business handle it? Would you be able to be in the black as that is going on? And if the answer is no, you might need to start, sitting down with, your HR team to see how you can systematically either reduce some people's hours, so you don't necessarily have to make them redundant. But obviously, you've got to go back to the employment contract. Okay. All right. Cool. I hope that answered your question, Enito. I wanted to quickly
the questions are coming in thick and fast now, but I do want to quickly go on to the question of angel investors. And again, this might also help Anytone. We spoke about that very, very slightly just now. But I'm talking more now about angel investors who, like Dragon's Den, those kind of people. And it can be a great source of raising finance. They really can. And a lot of people's dreams, financial dreams, business dreams would have died if not for the intervention of angel investors. But I do think there has to be a word of warning regarding angel investors, because I have seen cases where they have turned out to be devils as opposed to angels, if you know what I mean. It's not unheard of for them to grow business to a certain level and then elbow you out. That's not unheard of. I've seen that happen before. Make the business viable, grow it to a certain level, and then elbow you out. And then oftentimes, because when they come, angel investors don't just come with their money, they come with their expertise, and they come, more importantly, with their industry contacts. Yeah. And I've seen cases where they've fallen out with the owner of the business, and they've blackballed them within the industry such that person found it practically impossible to trade again within that particular field. So wonderful as they can be, you do have to be careful and have your wits about you. And you know what sometimes happens, because business startups are so desperate, they're just so desperate for the money, and here comes along this knight in shining armor, and they will just accept practically any terms that are given them, not thinking of the long-term effect of this. So I think that's important. What are your views on that?
Oh, maybe the truth is an angel can quickly become a devil. And it always just takes certain types of circumstances to make that happen. You're absolutely correct. Angel investment, business angels, for those that might not be aware, they're just people like you or me who have loads of money. Well, me not yet. You probably. And they're willing to invest in startups or established businesses that they think are doing great things. You're quite right when you said that a lot of them, and this is what I find, because I help a lot of businesses, startups and established with, I call it's called finance readiness. And finance readiness is about preparing yourself, not just your business, yourself and your business to raise finance. Because you might, like you rightly identified, you could have a good business, but you're the person who's bad for the business.
Wow. Interesting.
That's why business angels, at some point, some people get removed from their own business. Because yes, they started it. Yes, they're the visionaries. Yes, they're the ones that have pushed it. But unfortunately, they become the stumbling block to taking the business to the next level. So it's about preparing yourself and your business. Now, in terms of angel finance, it goes past getting the money, because there are lots of things that happen before the money actually goes into your account. And in fact, I always recommend to startups or established businesses that don't just take the money. For example, there are little things you can put in place. Do your due diligence about the angel investor as well. Who are they? Where did you get the money from? All of these little things, you've got to check them out, fact check them. Because oh yes, you just need the money. You can get blinded by that, and then get blindsided further down the line. For example, I'll give you a very personal one.
Okay, a real quick one though, because I gotta move this on.
I won't mention any names, but for example, I had an angel investor for one of my businesses early on the line, and further down as things went on, and someone I'd known for many years, but I let that blind me from doing due diligence. And what I realized was that the person had amassed a significant amount of money, but not illegally. They had sidestepped the HMRC.
Right. Okay.
They had sidestepped HMRC on a lot of their, liabilities. Yeah. When that became real, all of a sudden, it had direct impact
on you,
the business.
Yeah.
So little things like that. Shareholders agreement.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay, sorry to move you along, but we're going to have to round up the program in a little while, and I do want to take one more quick question. But before I do that, I also wanted to mention family and friends as also as a means of raising capital. You will be amazed that of the number of your family and friends that have money sitting somewhere and they don't know what to do with it. So don't be afraid to ask. I'm a strong believer in asking is receiving. So don't be afraid to ask. But having said that, keep in mind that this is a business relationship. It's a business arrangement. So you know, make sure that you have something in writing. Make sure that everybody's fully aware of the terms, because money is a great source of breaking down family relationships, and you don't want that to happen. All right, I'm going to take one last question just before we go. And it says, wonderful program so far. This episode has been a godsend to me. We're looking to raise finance for our ethnic food vending business. Our products are ethically sourced. Hence, we want to be associated with lenders which are ethically centered. How do I find lenders which meet ethical standards? What do you mean? That's one for you.
Lenders that meet ethical standards. You know, we've talked about personal finance, finance from friends and family, bank finance. There are also organizations called community development finance institutions. They're called for short CDFIs.
Yeah.
You will find that a lot of lenders, a lot of CDFI lenders are ethical lenders. There are loads of them out there. You know, again, you've got to clearly define what you believe is ethical. Same for loan sharks. They're the only ones I think are unethical. You know, because a lot of them, anyone who's, you know, a lender that is affiliated or associated to the, you know, Financial Conduct Authority they're ethical. You know, so it's just making sure that you know the organization, do your own research about the organization. There are loads of them out there. Find particularly community development finance institutions. If you just Google community development finance institutions, they have an umbrella body that will give you their members. Typically always advise, don't go to standalone ones. Go to the ones that are part of, you know, a bigger organization that can hold you accountable for their lending processes. Okay. All right. Go on. No, go on, sorry. Ethics could be a little as much as, you know, how much they charge you and all the hidden fees. All those things you just need to know. You know, what you think is unethical could be ethical and purely very legal as well. So.
All right. Okay, Bebe, I cannot thank you enough. It has been wonderful to have you on the show. I'm going to end this show with a comment that has come in from Rob. He says, "Dear presenter, my name is Bebe. Dear presenter, I just wanted to thank you and your guest last week on your advice on benchmarking my services against that of my competitors. It has been an eye-opener for me. Thank you and keep up the good work." Well, that's what we're here for. Thank you so much to everybody who has joined us again. Thank you very much to my guest, Bebe. It has been an absolute pleasure. As always, a wealth of information you are. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, stay safe during the week, stay well, and we'll be here again this time next week. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life. Bye-bye.
Hi everyone, it's your girl Bebe Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, Bebe Means Business. The show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business, but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Star Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember,